Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. And believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
Celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Getting a late start here on the Wrestling is Real podcast. Thanks for listening in, finding the show, subscribing. All the good stuff is at wrestlingisreal.com. Wrestlingisreal.com. We're going to talk about CM Punk because I know that everybody wants to talk about it and talk about the fact that, played, what we call like Monday morning quarterback, right? It's the whole thought of, okay, this free agent in the age right now where WWE is doing their thing and they're happy with, bringing people back. They've been more than happy to bring back the OC, Bray Wyatt, Nikki Cross has come back with her original gimmick. Like, it's all the things being turned around to the way that the fan base wants it. And remember, Triple H wants to do what the fans want, which is what he's doing now. He is doing basically what the fans want. There might be some things he's not doing because, the bloodline is just a set thing, but people like it. The fact that they're out there so much, people like it and they're into it. And the ratings show it. They're doing really well when it comes to being able to put out the product that, people are really enjoying. Because there are still things where, the ratings are going to be where they are. They're okay. But the thing is that they're still going to struggle when it comes to trying to keep an audience around to watch. Especially when there's good games on TV. And that's why. So, like, for instance, all right, Chicago Bears, New England Patriots had a pretty good game. Monday Night Football, 10.34 million viewers. And then you had 1.5 million for the Manning cast. And Raw was at 1.64 million viewers overall. But what happened was that the third hour dropped. And when you look at what they had, 1.77 million viewers at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 1.70, 1.46 for 10 o'clock. They're going to have these spurts like this. And it depends on what they have and what they're going to be featuring. So it's going to be tough for them. And the football game will always be a bit of an indicator, or will kind of give direction of where things are going to go. It's going to happen that way. But with what was worth it, they had, the way they put their matches together. It's also what they decided to go and do with what they want to go and put together. All right. So when you look at what they have, the last hour, you had Bianca Belair and Bayley in a non-title match. And for whatever reason, Bianca Belair, I guess the women's match, not so much Bianca Belair, but it's just the women, at that time of night, it's one of those things where I think they tried to counter program before, because they tried to put Bayley and Bianca on the whole storyline out there. What was it? A few weeks ago, they had the 6-man tag. Same thing. They figured, let's get the women out there, counter program what's going up against the hard audience and see what happens. Well, if we're looking at what they had, what they did, Raw was 8th in women, 18-49. And then you had 4 NFL-related shows and 3 entertainment shows were aimed at women. And 4th with women, 12-34. Like, I think maybe there's something about that women's audience they want to try to get, because the football is going to take up so much. It's almost taking a 3.0, in the demographic, 18-49. They're just picking up the right audience, the right male audience, and they're also getting women. But maybe Raw can get a little bit more of a mix and make up for some of the loss they're going to get from some of that the main core audience that might go watch the Bears and Patriots. Because you know what? You might, I'm guessing, you obviously have WWE fans that are wearing Patriots and Bears jerseys, and they're out there. They'll go to TD Garden. They'll go to, United Center, and they'll go. But it's like, the fact that there's going to be some people that will watch wrestling, but you know what? They're kind of casual, and they'll go watch football. And that's what he did. And so we talked about the main event lineup and saying, okay, what do they have that would really make a difference to get the main event picture back up? Remember, I took over a month to talk about that. And when I did, I never thought we were going to talk about CM Punk. Now, after Double or Nothing, we know we had the event, the scrum, the backstage brawl, which we've now found out that CM Punk's dog Larry was injured in the attack, so that's probably what also escalated things too. No matter what an uncalled for thing. And obviously we know for the last few months, people can't help themselves. Wrestling fans, my fellow podcast wrestling brethren, can't help themselves to talk about the constant issues going on with this. They can't help themselves, but they're going to. So I'm going to just step up and say this. When it comes to seeing CM Punk as a possible option to inject into the main event storyline in WWE, look, he's an injury risk because he's already gotten injured several times, but we're going to talk about how he was very, for AEW, CM Punk, for the year he has been on the roster, has done very good for them. They did get more people watching the program. It did help get more people, especially when it came to ticket sales and for getting main events and getting some pay-per-view sold. We were going to talk about what he did with that, how that contributed. No issue. Really, he did that. We know that for a fact. But when it comes to, do we need him for another year? Was it really important for him to go ahead and be on regularly on the roster? You know, that whole thought process of him trying to mentor and work with other talent, well, he did that. He did work with, he worked with Darby Allin. He worked with MJF. He worked with Jungle Boy, right? So that's good. He did the part. I'm glad he did that. But the thing was, it wasn't as if he needs to go and be here and like teach the young people and like kind of go on some mission. I would have preferred that. Let's get one more run here, and let it just be a year, and just rock it, and do what he feels to do to help contribute and give back, and then peace out. I don't think we needed him on a regular roster again. So, while I appreciate what CM Punk brought to the mix, it's obvious that he's a bit disconcerted now. Now he's pretty much to the point where it's enough. He's getting disgruntled. It's in his nature. It's obvious. We know that in WWE, I'm not talking about the fact of what he said to Colt Cabana and what he felt about things, but you know what? He doesn't play well with others that much from what we learned. We're just talking about what's been said. And he does this. And so he goes along and the honeymoon period changes. It just stops. And that's what we were going with for a good year. And listen, to get a good year out of CM Punk like this was great. And look, even if we didn't have the brawl, we already heard things going on in the background where he had his falling out with Colt Cabana, right? He had his issues with some other people on the roster we heard about. Obviously, the Elite, for whatever reason. But what's going to happen is the Elite will somehow make their way back in. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks will be back. And CM Punk is going to go. But CM Punk, for the money he's being paid, the one thing that has to be done for him is that, you know, he is expecting that he's going to be treated like, you know, a top star, and he did. On a roster of many top stars. They did everything they needed to do with him. With Hangman Page as well. Like, look, he did it. And they did a pretty serviceable job with him to put everything together. And you saw a lot of great wins out of there. I mean, we're never going to go and forget the fact that with MJF against CM Punk and one of the best heel, you know, set of promos for weeks on that, in that match. And it paid off. The feud paid off. It was a great storyline. One of the best that AEW's ever done. CM Punk's responsible for that. And who else would be better than CM Punk to get MJF over? It worked perfectly. There were things that were going to be done in AEW that would have been fresh and new and different, and that's why he was here for. He serves the purpose here. And as far as Vince McMahon goes, he was not going back to the other company. He stayed away for a long time. And that's fine, because that was what he wanted to do. But then people forget also, like, you kind of could tell that Triple H and CM Punk did not get along. And that was pretty obvious. Vince, when he was on Stone Cold, he said, we might, the door's always, we can never rule out what happens in the future. You never say never. And that's what we're getting here. And that never say never narrative right now among the podcast wrestling brethren, among the fans out there on Twitter, wherever, TikTok, they all want to go ahead and make some point and say, oh, this is what's going to happen. They feel like, well, it should just happen. Let's just put CM Punk over there. He should just go to WWE and that's it. Well, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to feel that way. I don't think it's necessary. All I really wanted out of the CM Punk run was just a year. That's all I really needed. Get him out there. You know what? Herald himself. And you know what? I would have preferred that he would have just done the time and really just come back as necessary. Like, you don't have to put him on a full-time contract. Let him step back. Let him do some other things. Because eventually some of the other people are going to do their things now. Right? Makes sense to me. But this is what they chose to do. This is where they chose to go with everything. And like, yeah, it sucks. And you know what? What are you going to do? It's a lot that happened there. If you could have just kind of go along to get along. I know it's not easy for some people, but that's what he did. That's too bad. And it's a shame that things led to this. And you know what? What are you going to do? Like, if there was a way to go and just continue to like let him go along and keep doing matches, doing things with him, a couple of things happen. Okay, sure. The Hangman Page feud is done. Hangman Page, you did the thing with him, and then you have CM Punk and Jon Moxley, and then CM Punk drops the belt. Jon Moxley is now full champion, and has been such, which is great. And then they go along and, okay, now CM Punk can move along to another feud, or you can just set him off. Send him off to do something else. If he wants to work, do coaching, wants to work backstage, wants to do commentary, there's a lot of things he could be doing. Does he need to be in the ring? Well, he did fine in the ring, but the truth is, he's not going to be out there looking great in the ring all the time. The guy is up there in age. He can't move like he did before. And we can see a little bit of rust when he first came out there in the first place. But it's acceptable. It was fine. But we're talking about a guy that, might have gotten himself back in shape to get back in the ring, but the guy doesn't have the intestinal fortitude. He doesn't have that way to keep himself healthy because he can break things. He can get hurt. And what happened was before is that you had the doctors in the WWE that would go and give the Z-Pack and all these other things when he was hurt and he was injured because, CM Punk isn't that a big of a guy. And the other thing too is that he goes his own way. Going back to Ring of Honor, he has his own look. He continues to keep his own look. He's kind of like the same way like he did going back then, except his hair's dark. He beats to his own drum. He's just a standalone. And the truth is, for him to come back into AEW was the better place for him. But for CM Punk, he can go wherever he wants. Did he make much of a difference on that backstage show on Fox? No. Did it make much of a difference to see him where he's talking about all the stuff he can do with Marvel Comics? I don't know if he did anything with it or not, but I didn't hear anything about it. His MMA career, that did damage to him. Okay? Because he did, he goes out there and he did fight a couple of fights and did not do well. Tries, but he struggled and he got burned the first time and he goes out again and he just had other things going on. He just does what he wants. And there was an opportunity that he decided, okay, I'll take this AEW thing. I like what they're doing. But just like any promotion, he probably gets fed up. That's just what he does. The guy's a bit of, I feel like he's a narcissist. I feel like he's just kind of an egomaniac, and that's okay. He's got a healthy ego. He can, because look, Go to Chicago, that guy's out there, and you know what? Everybody's cheering for him. You hear cult of personality, everybody's in. And I think there's not much more to get out of the CM Punk run anyway. I mean, sure, we could get matches with him, a couple of dream matches with, say, with Pentagon, with Andrade. Bring back some matches with Claudio or Miro or, Wardlow. All these other matches you could have done. Sure. Could he be going after another belt? I don't know. Maybe. It could be like going after the TNT title. Like, it's been built up well. You could do that. I don't know what else you do. But that's where we are. It's like, I already was kind of tuned out on what he was going to do next because there wasn't much more for him to do. Tony Khan could continue to book whatever you want with that guy, but you know what was going to happen with CM Punk? Because Tony Khan doesn't necessarily keep certain people front and center all the time. But you know what he has been doing lately? Consistently, that main event storyline is front and center. To see Jon Moxley and CM Punk regularly on Dynamite, or to be Jon Moxley and MJF on Dynamite, is happening all the time. But that story to go to Full Gear, they're furthering that storyline because it's part of the storyline to tell the main event. And to see Tony Storm out when it comes to the women's title, that's great. But like other things, okay, we're setting up the tag team title picture for Full Gear. Now you have set up with FTR and Swerve Your Glory, getting all that stuff together. But they also like to do that thing where, okay, well, Andrade's not on this week. Rush's not on this week. Matt Hardy's not on this week. Miro's not on this week. And you have all this talent that's not out there on a regular basis. The Jay Lethal, Samoa Joe, Wardlow. You might get some segments here, but they're not regularly on, which obviously the diehard public that are originally WWE fans that converted and became revolutionaries to go to AEW, they took the same ideology that they got from the Attitude Era and from the Ruthless Aggression Era, and they just said, well, let's get the same thing that WWE was doing, but let's put it with these wrestlers. And now some of the wrestlers we like, they're going over here. Now they're going to do the same thing. No, we don't want WWE style in AEW. WWE style can stay in WWE, period. But does CM Punk want to go back and do that? Like, is he going to have the chance to do what he wants over there and kind of have the same kind of character? Will they let him do that? And does it matter? Because he has faced most of the same people that were over there anyway. What do he have? What does he have that's new? Roman Reigns. Does anybody think he's going to beat Roman Reigns? The tribal chief, head of the table, head of the bloodline? No, absolutely not. Who else? I mean, ask yourself. Who else is there he's going to go and beat up? I don't know. Not many. What, are we clamoring for CM Punk versus Riddle? CM Punk versus Seth Rollins? Yeah, that's a pretty good match. I would like that. I don't know. CM Punk versus Sheamus? We saw that. Well, there's a lot of people that have been out there for a long time. CM Punk versus Baron Corbin? No. Or think about it. There's not a lot of major stars for him to go after. Not a lot of feuds for him to go after. There's not much for him to do. But more importantly, even if you wanted to have something to do with him, there's a short shelf life for CM Punk in any promotion because he can't stay. You understand? He just can't stay. With WWE, it's a different story because you know what happened over there? And nobody wants to make the point of that, but you know what? He met his wife there. That makes a big difference. Right? And he married her in 2014. And that was already after he was there for a long time. And he married after, but still, he met his wife there. And the fact that he was over there in the first place probably was something good for him anyway. To go there and spend time and to be with his family. But the whole point is that when you look at him and what he's done, listen, he's had a great career and he's done what he wanted to do. But when you look at what he did, look, he doesn't stay at a lot of places for a long time. And by the way, he's champion everywhere he goes. But you know what? There's something to be said about where he gets his time And he's there. He's in his prime. He's popular. Great. But he's going to go away somewhere else. We're not talking about anything new. Ring of Honor, he's there. Spent a little bit of time off and on in TNA. He goes to Ohio Valley, right? We go along. And then he comes in, and 2006 comes around, Survivor Series, moves along, and he stays around for a while, gets to be World Heavyweight Champion several times, drops out in 2013. Gone. WWE is the top of the heat. And he wanted to stay. He probably could have stayed there, but you know what? He lost faith in wrestling. He lost interest in wrestling. He didn't love wrestling anymore. I get it. That was a big scar, but that doesn't explain why he decided to react like he did to other people in the locker room and create. Honestly, he was one of the biggest suspects. Well, he was one of the biggest reasons why we have some tumultuous things going on in that locker room in the first place. They have to continue to be handled. Because CM Punk probably was not a locker room leader. Probably had some things going on that kind of just pissed people off. Rub people the wrong way. Because it's obvious that's what he does. And the roster, it looks like they don't want him back. But except for WWE, which he stayed there, 7 years? Long run. The longest he did anywhere else. And then he decides to go ahead and 2015, 2016, he is doing MMA, then goes up to 2018 and done. And then he did cage fighting commentary. But even that, 3 years. And he wasn't even there that much. He was just doing training. Also got hurt when he was training and couldn't do much for what he was doing anyway with the matches, and just like it was it. And so he comes in August 2021. He's here. He's done everything. And according to Sportskeeda, and when you document what he's done for his career there, first match against Darby Allin, gets the victory. And then he beats Powerhouse Hobbs, Daniel Garcia, Matt Sydal, and Bobby Fish in featured match. Then he gets into his feud with MJF. He then goes into the world title picture. By the way, Punk lost MJF in Chicago at AEW Revolution. So MJF gets the win at the end of it, of the end of the day of that feud. And then we get to Double or Nothing. And Hangman Page. And there was that. And then he got hurt. He was supposed to take on Hiroshi Tanahashi at Forbidden Door, and it didn't happen. So Jon Moxley won a tournament to become interim champion. He's here. And remember, there's CM Punk. And we're talking about what? This is into May of this year? And he's gone. A lot of time he's not there, and people were concerned. And then remember, we still don't have Adam Cole back. We don't have Bryan Danielson for a while. They were all injured on the shelf. And then we come here. And then we move along where Moxley and Punk and the short match on Dynamite. And then a contract for Jon Moxley at All Out. And the All Out match happens. And then we get the All Out media scrum. Done. September 7th, Punk is suspended. And now we're at the point where most likely CM Punk's going to be bought out of his contract. But let's go into the stories of what they are saying right now so far. Let's divulge, if you will, huh? So let's break into the story from CM Punk and what actually happened this past Friday. Sports Illustrated, I'm taking the story from Dave Meltzer at Wrestling Observer Newsletter. He reports on Friday, AEW and Punk are in talks regarding a buyout of Punk's contract, and his AEW future has been in doubt since the involvement of that backstage fight. Meltzer says that those with close knowledge of the situation, the buyout is what's trying to be done, and Punk's future is not bright. It looks doubtful. And the talk is to buy out his remaining years of his contract, and the holdup is a non-compete period. And then he goes on and says that obviously the non-compete is an issue. It's about interest in going to WWE because there's no need for a non-compete otherwise, because nobody else could pay Punk close to what he was making. And he doesn't know, Meltzer, if WWE would take Punk back. Now, you already saw, like there was a short vignette that came out showing the disappearance of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. So we know we're going to see some kind of return for them coming up. But we're not going to see CM Punk. And his buddy Ace Steel, we're not seeing him there either. And that's it. At the moment, we know that Punk has suffered a torn triceps during his match with Jon Moxley. Still had to go and vacate the AEW World title anyway. So what happens now is, that's it. He's on the shelf for a considerable amount of time. 6 months, 9 months, whatever. It just eats up time on his contract. I don't know if they're going to do anything like where WWE would have somebody injured that would just add more time to their contract to make up for the time lost. I don't know if Tony Khan's doing that or not. But the thing is, you got a year out of him. And you got quite a bit out of him anyway. So let's talk about what they actually got from him. There was a story that came out talking about if CM Punk really helped out. The Sportster wrote about that. I want to bring that story up and put that in front of everybody and make a point that, you know what? We need to show the numbers that identify why this guy did do a lot of good for the company because of the kind of money he brought in. Is the drawing power of this guy, his brand, his name, synonymous. And so here's what we got. WrestleNomics crunched the numbers and they put this picture together. That Punk was seen as a big boost as Tony Khan would have hoped in his first and now only year as an AEW wrestler. Now, AEW has held 15 pay-per-views since their start of their formation. Punk has been on 5 of them. And Punk was on the top 5 pay-per-views he ever had. And here's what this is something on Twitter. Brandon Thurster put this out. His appearances often increase quarter hours. The 5 pay-per-views he was on were the 5 highest selling for AEW. He main evented $2 million gates for the company, arguably through a third he wasn't on. And for the year on Shop AEW and PW Pro Wrestling Tees, 4 of the top selling items were of CM Punk. So, before Punk suffered the injury, and Forbidden Door was already being sold, Forbidden Door was $1 million gate. So for everybody to talk about that Forbidden Door wasn't like much of a popular thing and people got a big deal about it, but you know what? Tony Khan made $1 million on that show. That's a big deal. And then the numbers of viewership that increased during quarter hours on which he was on was another thing that came up. That's pretty interesting right there, how much he was able to do. The guy drew money. The guy drew house. That's what was important. But let me ask you this. The Arthur Ashe show we just had a month ago. If CM Punk were on the card, was he on the card? I don't remember. They didn't sell it out, did they? Right? I'm trying to remember what it was that they did and what was the card there. I don't remember. Well, AEW, oh, here we go. Grand Slam. That night, or that week, excuse me, that weekend, right? Yeah, CM Punk was not on the card because he was injured. And when he wasn't there, the show didn't get a full house. Even though they had a great weekend of matches anyway. But that's interesting. So these are the things that explain why this was good for AEW. For the short term, for the year, I don't think anybody's going to think that CM Punk and AEW was a failure. I don't think it was. CM Punk crashed and burned himself. He decided to, regardless of what happens here, he got upset. He got pissed off. Do we need to go ahead and make him reason? Listen, if you have, some animosity, how this got handled was ridiculous. Because CM Punk's the one that's getting punished for it. the most because he's going to go. Build up animosity. Now, that's one of the things where one thing that was unfortunately a lesson that had to be learned for Tony Khan was that not everybody's going to be happy back there, and you're going to have some people with some egos and some kind of things where people are going to be very volatile, and they're not always going to get along. So the fact that you got locker room leaders, and it's not Tony Khan doing the laying out of the law, and not having to do so much where he has to go and put fines and suspensions together. He did do some of that with Jake Hager, with Eddie Kingston previously, but then you start seeing this stuff with Sammy Guevara. And they see things going on where there's some backstage shit going on that's not doing so good. And that's just got to get quelled, right? And this particular moment with CM Punk gave Tony Khan what I said a few weeks ago. He did made the right decision. A tough but fair decision to make a statement and to say, listen, in AEW, this kind of ruckus is not tolerated. That's it. Let's move along then. If CM Punk in the short, slim but none chance might stay around, the word is that the locker room says this. This is from Sportskeeda. Recent reports from Fightful Select have said that several backstage talents, they weren't interested in working with CM Punk in the same locker room, but laid down that significant amends need to be made following his antics, and that AEW stars do not expect him to be back to the promotion in the future. Period. So that's it. That's all we're going to get from him. And he burned the bridge. He did it. And some people have just been castigated for that. Look, people want him there because they want him there because of the popularity. But you know what? There's just some stars that are just disgruntled and they just don't play well with others. And you know what? It sucks because we see things like that. I mean, think about it. When you look at what is it? I think I'm a Buccaneers fan, and I think about last year with Antonio Brown, and the guy's good, and he plays good for other teams. He played good for the Steelers. He played forever, but you know what? He was just a cancer backstage. He was trouble. He made a hard time. Like he feels like he was so important, and then when he didn't get thrown the ball, he decides to take off his jersey, go out there like a fool, and he runs off, and he's been crazy ever since. And that's just like, there's just some people that are going to be acting like that. They're going to be hotheads. They're going to be ego driven. And that's normal. Some people, when you got to be in the wrestling business, you got to be like that, right? You got to have a healthy ego and feel like you're the number one guy, the best in the world. If he's going to feel that way, he's going to do that. He's going to act like that. Sure. Now, moving along, Clutch Points puts out a story talking about warnings about WWE. I don't know what this is supposed to be, but I wanted to pull this up because it caught my eye. This is from last week, by the way, but somebody was saying that in this story, Tony Khan is trying to get out of his commitment to Punk and subsequently wants to guarantee he doesn't jump ship back to WWE. Everybody's talking about the fact that the contract and applying a lengthy no-compete clause. Well, remember, he's already going to have to go and sit out anyway. It doesn't matter. But does it really make much of a difference anyway? We got so much of what everybody wanted. You get the Ring of Honor feel with CM Punk. He gets to come out the Miseria Cantare, all that stuff, right? You get his matches out there, the dog collar match, all these things that are going on. Great feuds. It was a great year of him. And that's all we need of him now. And also, in his controversy, in his disgruntledness, he has given us some gold. The pipe bomb problem is the best one of all. We can always talk about that. No, I used to put that clip into the program on the start of the show because he was that good. He was that important. But to me right now, it doesn't make much of a difference for him to be here or what. There's no need for him here. When Tony Khan had his interview with Ariel Helwani, which Ariel Helwani called difficult, he did say that CM Punk has an office role right now in AEW. He says there's a lot of people you'd go where whatever their stuff is. I think that's specific. Even if they're not working an office job per se, you like go to a Chris Jericho, Bryan Danielson, John Moxley, and you would elaborate that other names that would be in the office job would be Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, and CM Punk. I don't know if it's just kind of a throwaway line or whatever, but that's what he said. Okay. Not a big deal about that, but you know what? Tony Khan didn't want to talk about it. There's a legal investigation going on about it, so we can't say much else. We still don't know if anything that's going to be criminal that's going to be in the investigation where somebody might get charged or a civil suit. We don't know what's going to happen. That's the other part. He's a liability. Right now, they're the company, and for the sake of the roster. See, everybody was talking about this non-compete and everything. Does anybody care about the roster? The AEW roster does. I mean, they matter, right? Like, they're also working the card, and they're doing just fine without CM Punk. You know why? Because MJF is rolling the show. He's great. He's turned face. I mean, he basically turned face tonight, coming out to defend John Moxley, and wanted to have a fair fight with John Moxley for the world title. And so CM Punk's now faced, and it's like, he's over, big time. There's a little bit of smugness and all, but you know what? He's doing good as a face. It's not bad. I'm still getting used to it. But now, when you look where we are now, and honestly, MJF, there's a little bit of the rubbing off of Ric Flair when I look at it. And by the way, Ric Flair, on his show, he refers to CM Punk as a B-plus player. That he wasn't as big as he thought he was, which is true. Now, we also know that Chris Jericho retweeted a fan that made points about CM Punk became toxic to AEW. And you know what? I think that's also going to be said true for Chris Jericho, that I don't think he wants that kind of stuff going on anyway. Who wants that headache? And for the wrestling fans, of course, they're not going to do any better. They're just going to be like kind of ignorant of the fact that, because it's not your problem. You just want the guy on the show. You want him on the card and do the show and do his thing and go to sleep and all that. You want him on the show because you like that. But there's no consideration for the actual promotion themselves and what they have to go through to pay the guy, and pay the guy handsomely to be a nuisance, to be a subconscious troublemaker, to make it hard to work on the shows, to be disgruntled, to be angry, to be bitter, and to just be, to really create this toxic environment in the locker rooms, and it kind of spread out to other people that probably felt like, oh, well, look at what CM Punk does, and other people felt they could follow suit. And that's what they thought. Now, a story from WrestlingNews.co. They come up and talk about how there's that. So that's where Jericho says, and there was a tweet that came out, and what Chris Jericho didn't physically do anything but just like the tweet. So the tweet says that, quote, "Imagine you're CM Punk. You've had one of the most triumphant comebacks ever in the history of wrestling. You've been promoted as a star you never got to be in the WWE, and within a year, you completely ostracize yourself, becoming so toxic that you're not worth having around." Then he says, "You cannot bring Punk back without ostracizing the rest of the locker room. He buried them all in public on a night when he won the world title and sucked the life out of a pay-per-view that cost millions to produce. Let him go to WWE. He's proven he's not the man he says he is already." But I disagree with L Blade Daily's tweet, that last sentence. I think he doesn't go to WWE. He doesn't need to go to WWE. That's it. We just need to see, people just need to go and come to grips and say, what, CM Punk, thank you for being here for the year. Go out in the sunset. Do what you're going to do. Comic books, whatever you want to do. You're back on your own again. What's the next phase of your life? It's not wrestling. At least you got to do it. So now we know that with Triple H is going to be the one that will determine if we're going to see CM Punk ever come back. There's a new report that says Triple H was not interested in working with CM Punk earlier this year, but the stance has softened recently. And I don't know who said that or who told this reporter that. So we know that Triple H and CM Punk had animosity back in the day, part of a feud. And that Punk has gone on with record with ill feelings towards Triple H, once referring to Vince McMahon's doofus son-in-law in the pipe bomb promo. And Triple H now, maybe there's perhaps a kindling of the relationship that could be best for business. No. WrestleVote says that as of July, Triple H didn't want to do anything with CM Punk. And even less to do with the man behind the on-screen character. But feelings might have thawed since then. And this is what they said. Quote, I was told, pretty straightforward, that Triple H wants to do nothing with CM Punk. And even if he wants to, that's to do with Phil Brooks. I did ask for the last couple of days, and it's softened a little bit from what I understand. There's still animosity. I think there's a lot of pieces that need to be picked up between the two of them specifically. But Hunter learned from Vince, and Vince made amends with everybody. So to say the doors are closed is ridiculous on anybody's part, especially in this war that's happening right now. Yeah. I would definitely recommend Triple H to not go forward. I think that would be the one person I don't think you need to bring back. People got their taste of CM Punk. We do not need to see him out there anymore. I think it's done. And that's the story that's going on out there anyway. And I'm like, no, we do not need him out here anymore. It's done with him. I think they made the point. Enjoy the matches we got with him. I don't think there was anything else really important that we were going to get out of him in the first place. Number one. And number two, there's nothing he's going to do in WWE that's going to be that much of a difference. It's just the fact he's going to be there. And that's it. He's not going to be the top star. Do you think that's the man that would go ahead and they would break up the undisputed Universal Heavyweight Championship for? No. You think that guy's going to beat Brock Lesnar? No. You think he's going to beat Roman Reigns? No. So why is he there in the first place? What does it matter? It doesn't. They don't need him there. He's not important. It's time for the fans to just let him go and, leave in peace. That's it. And that's all I got to say about that. I'm not going to go for an hour and rant on this because it doesn't deserve the time. And it's just this, right now we're just going along with the flow of like, okay, we have all these shows. I'm not talking about Halloween Havoc. I watched it. I wasn't impressed. Kind of getting a little bit, I'm feeling feel bland and feel kind of just, I'm not that interested in NXT. I watch it. It's background noise to me, but I'm not much into it. It's not much for me. So anyway, that's it. That's the show tonight. As always, thanks for listening in, hearing me out. I'm about about 6 weeks or so from the 10th anniversary of the program, which if I serve myself correctly, if I look at the timing of it, it will drop on I guess I'll have to do the celebration on December the 14th. Probably what I'll do the celebration to commemorate 10 years of the Wrestling is Real podcast. And I don't know how many shows I'll get to by then, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Maybe another 16 episodes or something like that. 15, something like that. And then by then, I'm at currently episode 729. And by then I'll get up to around 740, 41, 42. And we'll enjoy regaling on what the history of the Wrestling is Real podcast has meant. And we'll probably just do a regular show. But I will take some time to go ahead and reflect on what the show's been and the fact that I've gotten to do this show. The show I decided to do first, among anything else, when I decided to go and do podcasting on my own. After already doing podcasting for my full-time outfit for 4 years, no, maybe 5 years actually, 5.5. And I decided to do this and I've been happy with it. I love it. And I haven't gotten tired of it. Like I said, I only did one show I didn't get to do, and that was Jeremy G filling in for me. Otherwise, I've been consistent with the show, and I look forward to doing this show. And I look forward to doing this next week. So come back for the Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts. And search King of Podcasts on YouTube or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.